trouble. Wicked, why you gotta be so wicked? And the moment that you caught my eyes, I'm in trouble. Forgive me for wanting, but I just can't think anymore. When I see you, I'm in trouble. So enchanted by you. Why you gotta be so cruel? No, you made my knees weak, my heart stopped a beat. I still want you. Forgive me for wanting, but I just can't think anymore. When I see you, I'm in trouble. So enchanted by you. Trouble. I don't wanna get in trouble. Trouble. I don't wanna get in trouble. 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 I don't wanna get in trouble. But every time I hear you laugh, I get into trouble. Wicked, why you gotta be so wicked? And the moment that you caught my eyes, I'm in trouble. Forgive me for wanting, but I just can't think anymore. When I see you, I'm in trouble. So enchanted by you. Why you gotta be so cruel? No, you made my knees weak, my heart stopped a beat. I still want you. into trouble. Wicked, why you gotta be so wicked? And the moment that you caught my eyes, I'm in trouble. Forgive me for wanting, but I just can't think anymore. When I see you, I'm in trouble. So enchanted by you.
I really don't feel good. It's not getting a
Is anyone here? What did you find? You are listening to Supernatural Confessions.
Just say when.
Yeah, we are when.
Oh, okay. Shit. Okay. Hello. Hello, everyone. Hello. Hello.
Hi guys,
Uh,
welcome to On the Fringe. This is where we talk about stuff that's not really supernatural, but borders very closely on the supernatural.
Well, last week was the no, it was the week before when we talked about the blackout kids.
That's true. I say hi to some people once. Ivan, actually, it's just Bill and I now. Eugene doesn't really. Eugene's been busy, and like everybody. Oh, I did shave. Everyone's been so busy doing their own stuff at home. We try to take off the load of Eugene so that we just run the show ourselves.
Yes. So first things first, how is the audio, everyone? Like, any weird
Good point.
sounds, any crackling, any feedback?
That's a good point. Actually, something to bring up.
Let's do the audio checks and I mean we did it before.
It looked fine on our end.
It looked fine, but
Okay, cool. It's all good.
Okay,
We're
good.
all good. Got the green.
good. Yes, good. The cat's inside. There should be no weird sounds, no weird things happening.
Yeah. And finally, I honestly can't tell you how many episodes we've done, but after everything, we're finally here tonight talking about a subject we were waiting to
No
talk about.
furries. An actual cat.
We're waiting to talk about. This was the reason why On the Fringe was kind of born in a sense. UFOs, Bigfoot, a lot of this stuff. But UFO's been hovering over us for the longest time, and a lot of you guys want to see it. And well, that's what we're going to be discussing today.
Yes, finally the votes have been cast and UFOs. We are probably going to split these off into several different episodes because the UFOs are such a massive.
Yeah, it's. I mean, when we put the polls and we were discussing it last week, what we wanted to do is actually give you guys the topic on like what you guys want to see. So, for example, UFOs. But because UFOs, it's such a big topic, we're gonna have to slightly choose, and it's not gonna be just one episode on UFOs. I think we're gonna have to we're gonna go back to UFOs multiple times. So
Yeah, there's things like like we've got planned for doing like different species
yeah,
of aliens, different alien species. We probably have to talk about the Nazi UFO theory. That's a really big prevailing one, and then we have to talk about basically space exploration and the more sciencey part of the UFOs of why can't we find them? Why can't we actually see them?
yeah.
What's going on?
And I mean, there were a lot of good topics on the poll last week. I mean, Ivan wanted to see dragons, and I think actually surprisingly, it was one of the topics that a lot of people wanted to see too. So, stay tuned. We have so many more like coming forward. There's so much to talk about, so many different topics, so much just on UFOs, so many other things. But tonight, we decided that we're gonna dip our toes a little bit in what the UFOs are, right? And I think when you speak to a lot of people on what a UFO is, or at least their first knowledge or experience on a UFO, everyone tends to bring up the Roswell incident.
Yep.
And that's what we'll be discussing today. I mean, you
I
guys
mean,
sent
the
a lot of
Roswell.
yeah,
I mean, the Roswell incident is probably the first instance of a UFO, anything to do with a UFO, that you can talk to anyone on the street and they know something about it.
yeah.
And this was way back before UFOtologists was a subject matter. There weren't people actively like looking for UFOs. They were just kind of people that spot them and then they go, "Oh, that's weird. Oh well."
Yeah. And I mean, like you guys, we're so thankful that you guys are sharing a lot of your stuff on whether it's the comments, Discord. We're gonna get to all of it, but just for today, since we're just gonna dip our toes and get everybody to get them some interesting topics and just a brief introduction.
Yep.
So we will
Orange
get
Streak
to
is
all of
correct.
that.
Kenneth Arnold's was one of the first UFO, kind of like big-ish UFO sightings that the media did pick up on, but Roswell was the first one which kind of became global and became extremely mainstream. Like everyone knows about it.
Yeah. So let's begin then. Why don't you lead us in and tell us more about Roswell?
I mean, okay, dates. So essentially, Roswell, way back when. My God.
It was
Okay,
in the Roswell incident
you have to
was
give me
okay.
dates here. You have to
Yeah,
give me
yeah.
dates here, because
It actually was in. It started in the 1947, if I'm not wrong, where suddenly people were seeing these saucers in the sky, and they were claiming that in the area of the Roswell, that there was a alien ship or UFO that crashed on the ranch. And if for those that don't really know where Roswell is, Roswell's in New Mexico, very similar to where Area 51 is. Was in the area. So that was that was basically the gist, and I think that sparked a lot of people starting to debate, like, oh, are UFOs real? Are are they? There are a lot of different theories that we're going to get into. Yeah.
so yes. So the Roswell incident was super popularized by a few different things. The 90s Roswell TV show was one of them, but also just during that time, there was an actual UFO explosion because this was the post-war period where it was kind of it was seen as the beginning of the new Great Long Peace that hopefully no, the Cold War hadn't really like kicked into effect yet, and this was a little bit of the Scare. People thought in the beginning that, oh, it was the Soviets. They've said something, but as the story unfolded, as the news articles started unfolding, and the government agencies started getting involved in this, people started to realize, hey, this is actually something else, because number one, the Soviet government didn't actually say anything about it. Usually, if they, at this point in time, especially in the late 40s, it would have been a really big achievement for them to go like, hey, we sent a pilot over to the US. Sure, it crashed, but we did it. We can do it.
And yeah, I mean, when this happened, okay, before we go any further, Bill, do you believe in UFOs?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Well, yeah, well, okay. I'm just gonna put it out there. I'm not like I want to say I believe in aliens, whether they're UFOs or whatever. I'm more along the lines of I believe that there is something else out there. There are extraterrestrial life forms, whether it's a green man or whatever they call it, gray. Yeah, that's up for debate. But I mean, if you look at it in terms of probability, we can't be the only. Life form out there that's sentient. So I do believe there is something out there, just might not be what we think it is.
I mean,
Yeah.
it depends what you think it is. So the current popular depiction of alien life out there is going to be simpler forms of life, microbial, maybe
Hmm.
even like very simple animal life, even maybe lesser pack intelligence life, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
If
And
there,
yeah, go ahead.
and it's one of those things where if there was an extremely intelligent civilization, um, there is a prevailing sentiment within the scientific community that says maybe we shouldn't be trying to find them.
Hmm.
that maybe if they're anything like us, and if they've had a civilization like us, and they're a lot more advanced, uh, we can just look back in our own history with British colonialism, just with like the Aboriginal people, the native people of various different lands. Yeah, we don't treat things that are less advanced than us, or what we perceive as less advanced than us, very very kindly. That's our own species. So maybe yeah, we shouldn't be talking to strangers out there in deep space.
Yeah. So, that's always up for debate. But to get back onto Roswell, right? So, what actually happened, if I'm not wrong, you can correct me. Um, Essentially, there was this farmer that was in the area who went to his ranch, just outside of town, of the area, Corona, New Mexico. What happens is he was collecting stuff. I mean, he was looking in the area and he found what he would, I mean, what overall would he would have connected to it being alien. So it was debris like tinfoil, rubber, wooden beams, and it was apparently scattered all over the ranch in a square mile. So he didn't really think about it at first, but then later on, when there's news about like silver UFOs and things flying in the area, I guess he kind of pieced two and two together, and he was like, "Oh shit, it might be some UFO remains, or like something that just crash landed." So he further went to dig it out, and then he took it to the sheriff office in Roswell. And then what happened? The sheriff called the army, which the airfield, which is nearby, and then it kind of started, I guess, overflowing, and people started jumping on it. And then I think the funniest thing that I read, or at least I kept reading about it, was in the early stages. I can't remember particularly who the guy was, but there was a staff, personnel from the army or the air force, right? He
Yep.
would initially say that, oh yeah, like, we don't know what these materials are. We've never seen it before. It's not from us. And that kind of, I guess, stoked the fire where everybody started getting like, oh shit, like maybe it's really a UFO, maybe it's an alien craft or whatever. And as that sort of like that overwhelming thing just kept going throughout the community nearby, the funny thing is they kind of retracted it. Like, I think it was what, maybe a week or so after that, and they
Yep.
said like, oh, it's not an alien craft, it was a weather balloon that that crash landed or just came back down to earth.
Yep. 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 Um. Yep. It's. I mean, here's the thing, right? A lot of people that want to believe in the Roswell incident and want to believe that the crash that happened in the Roswell area was a UFO will say that is a government cover up. I You see, like I feel like it is a weather balloon. I genuinely feel like it is a weather balloon
Okay, honest to God, I was not expecting that.
because
Like,
I've seen weather balloons. I've worked with weather balloons. I've made some, and I'm like, wait, this can't like. So when you go down the descriptions of what are like the materials that the guy describes, right,
mhm.
and like the strange like flat silvery material that seems when you crumple it out, it kind of comes back out into like the same form, right? Yeah, that's a very
I
yeah.
actually,
So
you
that's
know, I
that's a
don't.
fairly common like weather balloon material because it has to be super reflective, and it's kind of like it's like a weird aluminium based. It's like a aluminium coated like memory material. It's meant to be super light, and it's meant to kind of like dent rather than like crumple in itself.
Yeah, there was actually, I don't know, like those I think that were in Singapore maybe back in the probably late 2000s. There was this toy where it was this giant. It looked like a UFO. It's just this giant round disc. You got to fill it up with helium, and you can like it's like a big ass frisbee, and you can
Mm,
toss it to your friends, and it would float. And that was made of really thin material. That maybe what I mean, what you're describing sounds exactly like it.
yeah.
And it, I think if anything, if I saw that like years ago, right? You wouldn't know what it is, but I
Mm.
mean, when I had that toy and I was playing and I was throwing it around, like I was thinking, oh, if I were to throw it out the window, people probably think it's a goddamn flying saucer too. Because
Just in the
like
middle of the night. Yep.
I mean, dude, it was a giant ass round inflatable disc like a frisbee, and it was massive for what it is, and you could legit just throw it; it would float because it's helium. And I'm
Yep.
guessing that's you know I would think that's probably what it is.
Yep. So that shouldn't. I genuinely believe that shouldn't detract from other UFO sightings that are a little bit more weird, a little bit
Hmm.
more um a little bit more unexplainable. So the Roswell
Yeah.
incident, I feel, is kind of a very classic case of mistaken identity, a little bit, just because of the materials and the fact that yes, I have worked with weather balloons. Yes, okay, that is very very familiar. Yes, okay, that seems like it checks out to
I mean,
me at
look at
least.
just look at this picture that I put up, right? Like you see that material, it kind of looks like I mean, from what I look, what it's a black and white photo, so it's terrible, but it looks like it's just some kind of aluminum material isk, which makes sense if it was going to be a weather balloon, right? But I don't know.
Yep.
So that's just the tip of it where people said like okay we have UFOs that crash landed here, but then the conspiracies start to roll, right? And
So
I
I do genuinely believe in Area 51 home to a lot of UFOs and the cause
Mhm.
of like a multitude of different UFO sightings around Area 51 as being accurate, because guess what? UFOs don't have to be extraterrestrial in origin. The definition of a UFO is just an unidentified flying object.
Mhm.
So a lot of experimental aircraft, a lot of stealth aircraft that was being worked on, a lot of jet aircraft that were
Yep.
being developed in the late 40s. Yeah, they flew out of Area 51 to be tested. Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of German captured like tech was also transported over to Area 51 to be tested as well.
Yep.
Like if I was like a rancher or in like Roswell, New Mexico, maybe just came back from the war, never really even saw like a jet in my life, is seeing an experimental like one of the new experimental aircrafts that are they're experimenting with weird shapes, they're experimenting with diamond shapes. Yeah, that's a UFO to me. I don't know
Yeah.
what that is.
I just think that I mean in this scenario, right? Like I mean I'm supposed to be the non-believer, but in this scenario, you got to think of the context in which it happened, right? Like this was possibly okay. I'm not too sure, but I'm sure this is possibly after the war, where you have tech, and you are essentially fighting whoever gets there first, who has their hands on the best tech to beat the new war or whatever comes in next, right? And I just think that the location of where they found this was a bit sketchy because it was so near to the Air Base. I mean, and if let's just say the government was actually testing something and it did crash, they're obviously going to try to cover it up. They don't want people to know that, oh, we have this new tech, we were testing it out, and it turns out it fucked up and just crashed right into the ground. So,
Yep.
they're not going to be saying, like, oh, yeah, we were testing something, we're trying something new. So I just think that maybe in this scenario, I don't think maybe it wasn't an alien. It could be something unidentified. But I feel like I'm putting on a tinfoil hat right now by saying I do think that possibly it could have been the government, just trying to cover up something that um, they were testing.
Yep. So yeah, exactly. Like this happens quite frequently. It's just it's something that the governments do. especially around like bases like Area 51, which currently I don't even think is being used for testing anymore. It's more so just
Mhm.
like a regular Air Force base. I think testing is done in another base entirely that we don't even know of because it's
Yeah,
a
but I
little
mean,
bit.
even with Area 51, like you do need to have special access. I mean, I'm not sure if people
Because
have
it
heard.
is a United States Air Base like
Well,
base.
yeah, but I mean, like, have you seen those videos of people trying to get into Area 51? Like, they have to take a plane from, like, they have to fly this, what was it? Like an unbranded airlines that would bring you into the base, and then people would come out, they're going the same way. If it was just a regular base, it would be difficult to get in, but it wouldn't be that difficult to get in. You know what I mean?
Um, it would be difficult. Like, okay, so military bases are not like commercial airports. You can't just get in there. You can't just land a commercial aircraft there. There is no
Mhm.
strip for a commercial aircraft. So I don't know why you'd be trying to fly in with a
Yeah.
commercial
I mean, I
aircraft.
think Orange Freak kind of mentions it. It's called Janet Airlines, and I've read about this where
Yeah,
people, you have to get onto this plane just so that you could get to Area 51.
yeah,
And I think that's just, oh well, you could Naruto run too. Apparently, I think wasn't
yeah.
that
Like
last year where
most
people were trying to
people,
do that shit.
I mean, most people stationed in air bases that I know, either you're brought in on a military aircraft because it's
Hmm.
a military base, or you're brought in through a land route. Very, very seldom are civilians ever allowed on an airbase through a air route, unless they're VIPs or they're contractors for whatever reason,
Yeah.
or like even contractors find it very difficult unless
Hmm.
it's very, very urgent, and you'd
Yeah.
be on a military aircraft. So in that case, Roswell Area 51, yeah, is very strange that you're actually allowed more access than most bases.
Yeah. It's a bit of a it's a bit weird because you can't just buy a ticket to get on either. You'd have to. I mean, from what I read, you'd have to essentially be invited
I
on.
mean,
You
on
have to
most
work
bases,
in the
it's
area.
yeah, in most bases, it's like no, you can't
Yeah,
even get in. You do not have the option of buying a ticket. There is no unbranded airline that will take you because it is a military base.
yeah,
What are you doing there? So I
that's
find it
crazy.
a bit like, oh wow, okay, they're actually making a tourist attraction out of it, and they're actually giving you more access than you should. All right, cool.
Yeah. So I mean,
So
as much as we said that with the debris, it's kind of. I don't think it's a UFO. I don't think it's an alien form. That being mentioned, in the 1980s, there's this thing called the Roswell incident. I think it was a show and a book.
yep,
It was basically brought in to discuss this whole thing on. It was secondhand stories from the civil engineer from the area who worked there, and also a group of archaeologist students.
yep,
Um, Basically, they're just trying to uncover the stuff that was from Area 50, not Area 51, the Roswell, right? And
yep.
apparently, what they said that they had found was that while they were, I guess, digging in the area and searching in the area, they've encountered parts of UFO ships and also alien bodies. So, I mean, these take it with a grain of salt, take it how you will. Um,
Mm,
but this was something that they mentioned that was, you know, part of what the findings of the area was.
yeah, it's kind of like the whole thing of like it's confirmation bias. It's a little
Hmm.
bit of confirmation bias. It's the same thing with the whole Noah's Ark archaeological find,
Yep.
where it was suspicious backers that have a vested interest in finding that there is actually something there, and it's not peer reviewed, and yeah, there's no hard evidence to back it up.
Yeah. I
Which is
mean,
not
this
to
was just
discount,
yeah,
which is
this
not
was
to
just a
discount
book.
other UFO theorists, but I think that okay, because there's a lot to discuss, so let's put a lid on Roswell for the time being. And I actually really want to very, very briefly touch on, because somebody did mention it in the chat, um, uh, the Nazi UFO theory. The Nazi UFO theory. So the Nazi UFO theory is super, super popular because of the whole video games and the Wolfenstein series of like Nazi super weapons. I wholeheartedly believe that. The Nazis had a lot of different aerial projects going on. They had very, very advanced tech, especially with the whole V programs of weapons. The V1, V2, respectively, they were both first of their kind. Basically, one was a guided cruise missile, and one was a literal ICBM, a prototype of an ICBM, first of its kind in the world. They did have various other experimental aircraft, not just the Me-262, which is already considered very much a UFO. First time that came out, first time that the Me-262s took flight. Allied bomber crews were reported seeing them, and they didn't know what they were because they just saw this weird shape that didn't have any props, had was going way faster than they thought was possible, and was just just tearing them apart. They couldn't really do anything about it. So yeah, the Allies. So Ashton Firebird. Yes, the Allies did actually have like jets during World War II. They were working on jets, but they didn't ever field them in combat yet. The Germans were the first to field jets, and yeah, that's where the whole like UFO things came around. But that wasn't the only thing they were working on. They were also working on the first flying wing jet aircraft, the Horton HO-229. They were also working on strange shaped propeller aircraft like the DO-225, which was a double, like if you can imagine a propeller-driven aircraft, it's like one propeller at the front and one at the back, and it had like these tiny little wings at the side. So really, really strange aircraft that they were experimenting with and basically fine-tuning and tweaking in hopes that they would come about and soon enough to actually make a difference. They also had they were also the first to employ helicopters, very, very early like prototype helicopters, which like if you saw that thing flying in the sky and you were like 1935, 1936, that kind of thing, yeah, that's a UFO to you. That is inherently something strange. So yes,
yeah, I mean, I think it's always comes down to, you always find something that you don't recognize just strange, and you kind of hold on to something that's, you just make it what it is. You're not sure what it is, so you're kind of afraid of it, and then things start to snowball and all that sorts of stuff. And actually, I mean, there was something that a few people were mentioning in the Facebook chat about the photos and the hieroglyphs of UFOs in the pyramids. And I feel like this could be a whole topic on its own, and I think we might revisit it when we talk about
I
actual
mean,
like
we could
UFO
talk
other
about it
stuff.
now just a little bit because
Yeah,
it does link in a little bit with the Nazi UFO theory.
yeah,
Because there is a school of thought that yes, the Nazis were in Egypt. It was one of the things they did. They did love going on expeditions. They were also in Tibet. They were also in many parts of Iceland and Alaska searching for something.
yeah,
Most likely, it is, Hitler's derangement in trying to find the perfect Aryan race. But it is one of those theories that I think holds a lot of weight,
yeah,
simply because those hieroglyphs do look very suspicious.
yeah. I mean, I want to see
They're
like
not.
pull up an image of it. It's actually great. Like it's so exact what you would think of a UFO, that it's just a bit strange that it's there.
Yeah, it's not something that conforms to the traditional hieroglyphic meanings. So the ancient Egyptians had a very uh, set alphabet of hieroglyphs, of pictorial hieroglyphs, and which were very, very cleverly preserved and very well preserved in the Rosetta Stone. So we have quite a bit of knowledge on ancient Egyptian language, and these images are definitely not a part of their alphabet. They are meant to be pictorial representations of something.
I mean, it's like most languages. When you see something in the hieroglyphs, I mean, there are people who are studying hieroglyphs that they can read you the entire thing,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's sometimes it's not necessarily a letter form. It's just its own language where you're not really sure what you're reading, but if you understand the language, you kind of piece the two and two together, and you kind of get the context of which they're speaking, but you may not necessarily know exactly what they're saying. So when
Oh
it
no,
comes,
no, no. We have the whole
oh,
alphabet. We have most of the alphabet. So
yeah,
if you were to equate it to now, it would be
hmm,
like, okay, we have everything from B to V
right, but you don't have link.
because because of the Rosetta Stone.
Yeah,
Because that
so
has been so well preserved, and that is such a very accurate, like, this is what the Egyptian language is translated into Latin.
yeah,
This is word for word how to translate this.
so let me pull up the picture of the hieroglyph right here. So if you look at it, dude, just looking at it, it looks suspicious because all I see, well, I can no, it's a few things that don't really look like they fit there. There's a goddamn helicopter. There's what looks like a super yacht, and then your traditional looking UFO esque, maybe early super jet kind of thing. I mean, on the left, dude, that's the giant ass
Yep.
moth.
So
I mean,
so my interpretation and what others have interpreted this as to being, right, is a kind of like a pictorial account of what is around them. So if you can see there, right, like the two images to the left, right. So that to me looks like a sandfly, because you get those around the Nile River sometimes.
mhm.
And though the plant-like thing, that is a reed. That is a reed, I believe. So that makes sense. That makes sense. But ancient Egyptians would be putting that in pictorial representations because that is an observation of their surroundings and what is happening around them. These other things, on the other hand, even those things that you mentioned that look like hieroglyphs, they don't look like hieroglyphs at all.
Yeah.
They look like other images of something, structures, ruins, don't know. Um,
So it's funny that you mentioned that because actually Finn on Facebook actually said that skeptics and debunkers say that that's actually a hoax that was made by workers after the original hieroglyphs were damaged, which
hmm,
makes sense. And when it comes to ancient Egypt, man, I think there are a lot of people who go there who expect to find something, and especially to look for things, and they're actually like tomb robbers and tomb raiders that actually try to go in to snatch some stuff, and if maybe something
they
that was
do.
there,
They
you know
do. It's very
yeah.
profitable. That's
I
why they
mean,
do it.
I actually have another theory. I've actually read this somewhere that I think it's a bit of a stretch, but that this
Go for
could
it.
be that originally this could have been something completely different, but because due to erosion and just how things are, I mean, just over time after so many years, erosion's kind of made it look into something that we know today. And that's kind of the thing when people say when you look at and when you see ghosts, right? That in your mind you try to paste it to be something that is familiar to you. So when we see a spirit or whatever or a shadow, you automatically assume like, oh shit, that looked like a human to me, or it could be
Yep.
ghosts. Now, I'm not to us, it could have been this could be just gibberish, like, but because we're so used to what things are in the modern world, like I said, that looks like a speedboat to me, and that looks like an early plane, and that actually looks like a cartoon plane from the Jetsons, and that's like a helicopter. So it
Yeah.
could be completely something different, and just that the lines between each carving has just eroded over time.
Um, it's one of those. Okay, so I think that we have to be very, very careful about making judgments about this because it could very easily be a hoax.
Yeah.
You need to kind of go through the carbon dating process on this. But I definitely do not think this is simple erosion, because
Hmm.
if you've ever worked with stone, if you've ever sculpted, if you've ever done anything with chisels, the chisel marks are very, very sharp and clean,
Yeah.
which is probably why it looks like a hoax, just because it looks too clean.
Yeah.
Um, Usually, ancient Egyptian language carvings and stuff like that, they are not preserved to this level of crispness, as you could say. So a lot of ancient Egyptian um, carvings are a lot more worn down. They're a bit shallower. You can tell, especially if they've been outside for a while. Um, and it kind of scratches on a very real problem that especially with the influx of new tourism, they kind of graffiti on the hieroglyphs and kind of chisel in their own things.
Yeah.
So that's a real big problem. That's a
I
really,
mean,
really big problem, which
it's
is sad.
exactly like it's exactly like when people, I don't know, I think it's messed up that they do this, but it actually happens that people go to places in the world, the especially national monuments, and what they actually do is they just graffiti it, they do something along those lines. And
Mm.
I just think that's kind of messed up.
I mean, yeah, there was there was that Chinese kid that like tagged like tagged his like weird symbol on the Sphinx or something. It's like,
Oh
what?
yeah, I remember
Why
that.
did you do that?
Like yeah, I think it's stupid. But I mean, like in this situation, we don't really know. It could be for the purpose of getting people to go to these places, tour groups, whatever. Because I'm sure that after they actually announced this, there's probably an influx of people that wanted to pay to come and see it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. But again, the ancient Egyptian UFO theory. Uh, let's go back to that. Links very directly with the whole Nazi UFO theory
Hmm.
because of the ancient aliens theory that all kind of coincides together.
Yeah.
Because one of the explanations why that the Nazis had a lot more advanced tech they should have was that it was of a more extraterrestrial origin because they uncovered something in Egypt. And obviously that would not have happened if there were no aliens in Egypt to begin with.
Yeah. I think the Nazi should be on the Fringe, like the whole thing as a whole, because there are a lot of stories of people of the Nazis that they go and they actually find treasures. So, I mean, one of the conspiracies is actually the whole Nazi treasures, like the Nazi treasure, the lost treasures of Hitler. That's apparently a really big thing that we could actually revisit at some point.
Oh no, that's not like a conspiracy theory. That is an actual thing. That is an actual thing.
Yeah, but I mean, like
Um,
what, like in terms of conspiracy, like what they found. Like apparently they found the Holy Grail, or sorts of stuff.
yeah, yeah. I mean, like we can go into that. I mean, the Spear of Jesus was briefly held by Hitler, during World War II when he basically.
Yeah.
Um, Not many people know this, but at one point the Nazis did kind of march into Rome, into the
Hmm.
Vatican, and took a whole bunch of stuff and had like a 1 week occupation,
Yeah.
and then left
Yeah.
because
So
the Vatican had a deal with them.
yeah.
So yeah, at
So
one point Hitler did possess the Spear of Jesus.
so as before we go on into a completely separate tangent, right?
Yes.
This is something that I just found. Um, so what I mentioned before about people kind of putting two to two to something that they're known, like what they know. So this is apparently something that was actually this is found in 2017 where certain NASA scientists say that they actually that the ancient Egyptians actually had a particle accelerator way ahead of us. And
Hmm.
yeah, bro, like I don't know, it kind of doesn't look
I
like.
I
I
feel
mean,
it's too clean. Like Frankie said it like in the chat. It's like this. It's too clean. It's too new looking.
yeah, and it's
It's
kind of sketchy. I don't see like you put, dude. There's squiggly lines. There's so many squiggly lines everywhere. Anyway,
yeah. It's one of those things where um it's one of those things where it's like I don't know. It's very odd. It's very odd for Egyptian hieroglyphics to be this pictorial without any words describing it.
yeah,
So think of okay, so things you would put on a ancient Egyptian pharaoh. So you'd have like all the beautiful artworks and stuff like that, but then you would usually have like writing associated with that artwork. Because remember, this is meant to be the home of royalty, so they
mhm,
kind of want to show off and want to sign off like, oh, this was made by X and X, and this just depicts like Pharaoh like XYZ triumphing over like XYZ tribe.
yeah. Like this was his life. I think that was really funny that I actually I was reading about Egyptian hieroglyphics once, and it was funny because in one of the tombs of one of the kings, it was the guy who was actually carving it was telling his own story, which is fucking
Yeah.
weird, but that was cool. Do you, but this is exactly what it looks like. I mean, I don't know what they're writing about here, but this is what a normal hieroglyphic wall would look like.
Yep.
Are
Yep.
you
Yep. There
actually
we
trying
go.
to read it?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Oh, you what the
Yeah.
hell? You can read hieroglyphics?
Just a little bit. I had an Egyptian phase.
Damn.
But
Yeah.
yeah, this is more so like a what I would expect Egyptian hieroglyphics to look like. So a bit of pictorial stuff right over here, but a lot of writing, a lot of hieroglyphs around explaining like what the hell this is and telling a story of what it is because it's an art piece. In a tomb, it's meant to be an art piece because remember, like ancient Egyptians had a very different view of dying than we do today. So it wasn't a very solemn thing. It was still kind of sad, but it was more of a day of remembrance and a day of in some respects, a triumph. Because you'd be the pharaohs were seen as the purest of them all, and therefore they would always be the ones like automatically get into heaven, that kind of thing.
Yeah. You know what? I was looking at the YouTube comments, and Jill actually brought up a good point.
Mm.
If there were aliens back in the ancient times, right? Why would they use stone carvings then? Why wouldn't they, leave more? Like use something else. You know what I mean?
It's so stone carvings are one of the very few surefire ways of preserving information, oddly enough,
Yeah,
that we
but I
know
mean,
of.
if something was so advanced back then, why would you use stone carvings? Like, I don't know. Why don't you use? I don't. What the fuck do we use now? Paper, I
Uh,
guess.
the thing is, paper doesn't last you like a
Okay,
like
fair
a couple
enough.
of years.
Fair
Even
enough. Like something
archival
else.
paper, even like archival paper needs to be
Yeah.
very specifically taken care of.
Yeah, or
Um,
like some kind of TV screen or thumb drive or whatever.
bro, like, arch- you know how frequently I have to like replace thumb drives? Like it's like every other month. Come on,
Yeah, well, I mean,
like
they could be the head of a game. They could have created, maybe the ancient Egyptians. They could have created like a 12 million terabyte hard drive or some shit. We didn't have to wait until what was it, 10 years ago.
so. I genuinely believe that inherently, as we go along with technology, things just get more and more disposable because it needs to do more and more things, and we're kind of getting into the limit of what digital technology can do with the materials we have in hand. So circuit boards are getting thinner and thinner and thinner, and what makes the circuit boards is basically the the, the circuits that go around it. Once you get too thin, it's very difficult for electricity kind of to pass through without shorting somewhere else.
Mhm.
So it's not a question of like can we make things that have like a 12 billion terabyte thing. It's we have to make it pretty big with our
Yeah.
current technology.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, right? People were saying UFOs, like UFOs are supposed to be this advanced civilization. Maybe they would have it. But
So
that being said, let's we're going on a fucking weird tangent here,
like
man.
if I don't really want to get into material sciences into, but nowadays what we do is basically we record data on titanium.
Yeah. I
That
mean,
is
it's something
now
actually Jill was saying, like, metal engravings or something along those
the
lines.
thing is metal engravings would rot over time if it's not specifically titanium. Like the
Yeah.
reason why they've chosen to do it on titanium is that it is theorized that titanium is going to be as resilient as granite stone. But yes, ye olde granite stone is one of the surefire ways of preserving data for millions and millions, for thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah.
It's one
But
of the few news we know of.
let's go back on the topics of aliens and UFOs, right? So when it comes to
Um,
actually like
Frankie, porn was actually in the Egyptian hieroglyphs. Yes,
yeah,
it's actually
wait,
a thing.
wasn't porn also like documented in the book Karma Sutra in the ancient Indian societies?
Yes, but also specifically, they have found ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs depicting porn. So there you go.
Nice.
So
Time to
yeah,
Google that.
in many ways, yes, the ancient Egyptians very advanced,
So
very learned people.
I mean, if this was a topic like specifically discussing like Egypt and all the theories behind it, aliens and stuff like that, it could have been time travel as well. But because we're not just talking about that, there's so many other areas on alien stuff that we actually are trying to save for a future episode. So I think the next topic that would be really interesting to look at is abductions and the stories of abductions, because I think that's a whole different,
Oh,
it's not different in the sense that it's both involving aliens and stuff, but the recounts that some people have actually put out there is insane. Like
yep,
how vivid I suppose that experience was. And, there are a lot of stuff that we want to talk about there. And I think that's going to have to be put on a completely separate episode by itself, because we're going to go through, I think that's going to go into a lot of
yep.
psychology. That's going to go through a lot of, I mean, I'm just going to give you a tidbit. I think there's something there was this one that I heard that apparently this lady who got abducted, she later found that there was this metal, I don't know if it was a device or remain or whatever, that was actually found in her body like many, many years later when she realized that when she went to an x-ray. And I think that's crazy to hear, because what the fuck? How did that
Yeah.
and your dream sort of, I mean, not dream, sorry, your experience sort of coincide, right? Yeah, people have said it's an implant, but that's going to be kept for a completely separate episode, because that's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, like everything we've talked about now is just a small tidbit of what we're going to talk about in the next few episodes. But yeah, I'm very excited about like talking about like Nazi aliens and ancient aliens of Egypt and stuff like
Yeah.
that, and also abductions, because there is a very very odd abduction. There's a very interesting tidbit of abductions, which is basically like alien hybrids or alien breeding. Um,
Hmm.
there are there are a number of accounts of both men and women that have said like, hey, they have had like relations with aliens because of these abductions and that kind of thing.
Yep.
So that is a thing apparently, and it is very odd. Not sure why they would do that.
Yeah. And just to let you guys know, I guess we're similar with in terms of like how the Friday night show is run, we do want to hear from you guys. And little the thing I think not many people know, but we actually have our own UFO fanatic or anything to do with aliens and the um, conspiracies. We do have our own fanatic. We noticed him in the first few episodes that we were doing. So it's actually we're trying to bring someone on that may like from the community to sort of also talk about like what we're discussing. So I mean, like there's so many opportunities to come talk to us and actually bring you on the show. So if you do want to be, if there's a topic that's burning in your heart and you're like super what's the word, super into it, you know we can bring you on the show anytime, man. Like I think it's a little bit different. It's a bit different. It's a bit different from how the Friday night one won't run, because here, we're basically discussing and going through it together. Um, so it'd be nice to have someone else that's on it. The clerk asked, "Is this guest legit or just a fraud?" Well, okay, there's actually multiple kinds of guests that we want to bring on the show. We have sent emails to UFO experts or uh, people in that community that are experts and have lots of information there. But what I was referring to is someone from the SC network and community, or on the Fringe community, right? So it's a
A
matter of
local
time.
person.
A local person, yeah, that makes more sense. And I mean, it's not to say that there isn't people in Singapore who have experience or haven't experienced UFOs. They're out there. There are lots of stories, and like we said, we're just trying to dip our toes in it tonight. I mean, we went on many tangents today. We started off with Roswell, and then we ended up in fucking ancient Egypt. But yeah, there's so many more to come along.
Yeah, we were. I think we had a good breadth today of like talking about like Roswell a little bit, which is the most famous case, to Nazi UFOs, then ancient aliens in Egypt that linked with the Nazi UFOs, and then we went on to um, alien abductions a little bit, very very briefly, but that's all right. That's all right. We'll get
Yeah.
to it in that episode.
And thanks to you guys who, I think there are many UFO alien fans out there, conspiracy theory fans, who ask us to talk about stuff like the clerk just put out there, the Lacerta Files. Yes,
Yeah,
if I'm pronouncing that
the
right.
the Lacerta,
There we go. Okay.
Lacerta.
Yeah, there's so many of these things that you guys send us, and obviously
I thought that
we
was the
can't.
Lazarus Files. Okay, well, okay.
Yeah, like we can't get to it within an hour, so obviously we have to split it up. So let me do something real quick. If you can comment in whichever platform you're seeing, we'll look at it. Would you like us to do I mean, because UFO is going to be such a large topic, right? Do you want us to do, like, for example, we did UFO today? Next week, do you want us to continue doing UFOs, or you guys want to do something else first, and then we'll come back
No,
to
no.
UFOs?
What?
Because dude, we'll be
Let's
talking about UFOs forever.
so let's break it up. So we've got 4 different subjects that we want to talk about, like 4 different big subjects that we want to talk about. So what we want to talk about is um, so one I would say would be UFO crash landings and UFO sightings, very
Mhm.
specifically. Another one would be Nazi UFOs. Another one would be ancient aliens, and the fourth one would be um, alien abductions and alien human hybrids, and then fifth one would be alien species, documented alien species.
Yeah, there's so many. So, like, I think, what do you think, Bill? Do we do it back to back to back, or shall we take a break in between and talk about other stuff like dragons or all sorts of stuff that other people want to see as well?
Um, I think that I think we should. I mean, since everyone's voted and it's been very unanimous. I mean, there was 84 votes for God's sakes.
Yeah.
So I think we should do back to back to back. So I think we shall. We'll leave it up to a vote for you guys of which one of the five we're going to do next week of the episodes,
Mhm.
and then we'll take it from there. Because yes, and um, I guess you could say furries are an alien species. I don't know. I don't regard them as normal people, so I guess they are
Okay.
aliens in a way.
You know what? I actually have a great idea. Why not we keep the polls as it is. We put it we'll put aliens as a subject or UFOs, whatever the like. And then if you guys still vote UFOs or aliens as the first one, then we'll continue with our first topic. And it's like a four-piece kind of thing. We have to go through one by one, right? And then if there's something else that week that pops up in as a part of the suggestions that you guys want to see more of, then we'll maybe do that one first and then come back to the other ones later. Because it's not every week that we have good topics. It's like sometimes people don't like what we want to offer. Like for some, I thought metahumans was gonna be a great topic, but apparently nobody wants to see them. So
Meta human, no good. Meta
I mean,
human. I mean, it
yeah,
is too close to the Marvel MCU universe kind of thing. So
dude, that'd be sick. I mean, there's so many stories, and our fairy aliens. That'd be that'd be something
I
for
mean,
Bill the expert to talk about. Actually,
I would say they are. I mean, they do converge and cosplay conventions, but sometimes they just are just out there. Like when I was in Boogies Plus, I saw like a dude with like just like a furry tail, just like what the hell, just walking around,
that's honest to God super scary and kind of strange. I'm
and
not
I
down
was
for
just
that.
like, the hell.
Yeah. So I mean, look, like Ivan Go on Facebook says Atlantis is it has as advanced tech, and I think Atlantis was a really good topic to talk about too. And there's some maybe could be some lines between the two of them. So, for example,
I
with
mean, I
Atlantis,
think
I'm still gonna put it in, and we'll just see from there.
yeah, I think Atlantis would fall under the ancient aliens and like the Egyptians kind of thing because
Hmm.
the Egyptians and the Atlanteans were theorized to have existed around the same time period.
Okay.
Um, so, like at least like early Egyptian histories kind of make reference to them. There are a few hieroglyphics. There are a few like documents, Egyptian documents, which seems to point to something happening there, but that is for another episode entirely.
Okay.
So yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, we'll still have the polls out. You guys can just tell us what you guys want to hear about more. I do think at some point, maybe closer to next month, where we could kind of do a slightly longer episode because I do think that when it comes to UFOs and aliens, we do not have enough time, and I think we're glossing over a lot of
Even
stuff.
the Nazi UFOs, even the Nazi UFOs is
Yeah.
a lot to talk about. There is so much to talk about Nazi UFOs.
Yeah, and I
Um,
think there's a lot of things that we gloss over to kind of cut the time. So we may do, if everybody kind of agrees on or wants it, we could do a longer episode, like an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. We'll see. And we'll actually go from there. Actually, dude, there's a good question that it was brought up. What's this?
what's up,
GF00. What are your thoughts on Bob Lazar?
Bob Lazar?
Yeah.
Mm, mm, Bob Lazar. What do I think of him? Let's see. Honestly, I don't know. I don't know what to think about him.
I mean,
Hmm.
I just feel like he's this very strong conspiracy theorist, and you know, there's a but I feel like that's a completely separate. That's a big topic because
The
that's where he starts to go into reverse engineering, like tech, right? And whether it's a real thing or not.
the problem I have with him is that he has no actual scientific credentials behind him. If you get what I mean.
Fair enough. Fair.
So I don't uh I'm a very firm believer of like, oh okay, definitely way back when degrees were a lot rarer and fewer to come between, and you wouldn't regularly, even for an engineering job, you would not really have a degree or some sort of certification. Um, Matt is actually a bona fide scientist.
Yeah, I'm actually a scientist. That's my actual job. So,
Yes,
bruh.
and I'm in robotics. So,
But yeah,
so
I
yeah.
mean, well, there's so many things that we can go on. But anyway, let us know. We're gonna put up the the polls again, and we'll actually get into it. So, oh yeah, I'm not a UFOlogist. Is that a real thing?
Yeah,
Oh
ufologist.
shit.
But
Okay.
then again, back in the Roswell crashes, ufologist wasn't a thing. The ufologists were in the 60s.
Uh-huh.
So in the
Interesting.
60s or 70s, I can't remember. But yeah.
Okay. Anyway, we're gonna get post up the stuff. If you want to see aliens slash UFOs, I'm gonna put it all in the same thing. I'm gonna put it under UFOs slash aliens or UAPs, whatever. I'm going to tag all three because apparently that kind of sparked a debate in the comment section too. We're going to put that up. Please vote what you guys want to see again. If people want to see dragons, we'll do dragons. If people want to
Mm.
see, I forgot the other topics, we'll do those as well. Right? Okay.
I mean, we could go
Agree?
for, yeah. No,
All
I
right.
would agree to that. I think give everyone the choice of what they want to hear next week. But yeah, I generally speaking want to do one more UFO thing back to back, and I feel that
Mm-hmm.
like that delivers on you guys' need and want to do like a bonafide UFO episode. But UFO is such a large ranging kind of topic that it's very difficult to condense it in 1 hour. I mean, we
Yeah.
talked about things for 1 hour, and it's just okay, stop, stop. Okay, we need to move on.
Yeah. All right. So, Bill, lead us
Yep,
out.
yep. All right. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. And this is On the Fringe. The truth is out there.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning again. Please find us on Discord, Facebook, the group. We're always there. Bill apparently had some trouble finding the poll. If you guys do have trouble finding the poll, I will be putting it out on the Discord. Okay, we'll do that. And until next time, thanks for tuning in. Stay on the fringes, guys. Bye.
What did you find? You are listening to Supernatural Confessions.